Hello, and welcome to our show, Midwest Weekly Power Rankings and Stats, starring myself, Herwick, and my co host, CLT. Today, we are also featuring a good friend of ours, Dropward, to give you some more info about the stats with a special segment specifically on Power Picks. So go ahead and stay around for that. But first, without further ado, we're going to kick it off with Herwick's Baba Yaga hit list. All right, CLT, why don't you go ahead and reveal our first team on the power rankings, or should I say, our number 18th team? That is going to be Icewall once again this week, not making any movements, staying here at 18. It was certainly a toss up for me. I was kind of torn if I wanted to move them up a notch or not. But the first two teams you're going to see on this list, the big thing about them is they're both sitting at 0-3, and neither of them have won a single match thus far. So unfortunately for me, I have to continue to keep them low on the power rankings. Let's see what they can do this week against Small Brain No Mechanics. Go ahead and show us our number 17 team, CLT. That's going to be T1 Tempest. And they did drop one from the 16th spot. And that has a lot to do with what the next team did. So go ahead and show me that, CLT. Our number 16 team. It's going to be Caster Curse. All right, so the simple breakdown here is this. All three of these teams are 0-3. But Caster Curse, they have showed resilience. They took a game off Scorch and pushed them to the brink. So that, for me, alone is going to put them slightly above both T1 Tempest and Icewall this week. But let's see if they can finally pull off a series, or any of these teams can, in week 4. Let's go ahead and show us number 15 team. That's going to be Free Brax, staying right where they were last week. They did end up losing, and that's a lot to do with why they're not going to make any movements. And though the loss was against a pretty decent team, an Insane Banana Posse, we got to remember Insane Banana Posse had no wins coming into that matchup. So let's go ahead and reveal the next team, CLT. That's going to be Dyslexic Defenders. Dyslexic Defenders, they lost to Instinct CK, a team that has looked really good. They did beat TK Benchers in week 2, but once again, their only victory so far this split is against a team that is pretty low on the bracket, and that is T1 Tempest. So for me, I cannot move them up. But go ahead and show me the next team, CLT. That's going to be Insane Banana Posse, moving up the power rankings. They're actually going to go up 2. They had a very, very nice victory here over Freebrax. Again, understandably so, Freebrax wasn't a team high on the power rankings, but Freebrax did make one of the biggest jumps last week, going up, I believe, 4 spots. So for me, they played against a 1-1 team. They pushed TK Gamers to a 3-game series. Insane Banana Posse right now, they're on the come up, and I think they're a team to watch out for, as I think they can continue to make noise in Group A. Go ahead and show me our next team, CLT. Coming in at number 12, that's going to be Peanut Butter and Jelly, dropping 2 spots. A lot of this just simply has to do with they did lose their series against Small Brains. It wasn't a bad loss by no means, but you're going to see the teams that moved up above them, they were able to win this week. Go ahead and show me the next one. Coming in at number 11, Sad Jellyfish, also dropping 2 spots. Similar situation to Peanut Butter and Jelly, but they're going to continue to edge out Peanut Butter and Jelly with their win from week 2. Who's next on the power ranking, CLT? All right, coming in at number 10 as we're breaking into the top 10 here is going to be Scorch. They're going to go up 1, and they're going to get out of the bottom of the bracket here a little bit. Their win against Caster Curse, though it might not show as impressive here as it is a bottom-ranked team currently, it still was impressive nonetheless, and they still have a good win on the books from week 1. That is Insane Banana Posse, who I think is continuing to push these teams. And it was a nice 2-0 from that week 1. So With that being said, due to Sad Jellyfish and Peanut Butter Jelly both losing and dropping to 1 and 2, Scorch is going to get the slight edge and move to 2 and 1 and move up in the power rankings for me this week. All right, TLT, go ahead and show me the next team on the list, and that is going to be Cal Poly Division 2. The team I think, as far as the 2 and 1 teams, I'm maybe most impressed with at the moment on the lower side of things. They came out and they really put a beat down on T1 Tempest. It looked methodical. But due to the fact that they did beat a lower seeded team, I can't move them up as high I would like. So I'm only going to move them up 3 spots, but still it's a decent jump this week considering there hasn't been as much movement. So good on Cal Poly Division 2. I think they might just be a little better than Scorch currently in this form. Go ahead and show me the next team, CLT. That's going to be Small Brain No Mechanics. And why don't you, at that matter, show me the team after that as well. And that's going to be Load the Cannon. So at the 8th seed still, or the 8th spot on the power ranking, apologize, that's going to be Small Brains. And at number 7 is going to be Load the Cannons. The reason why both of these teams are still sitting in these spots are just simply the fact that their wins this week, though they were good, they weren't as impressive to me as the teams above them. And they still have yet to show me what I need from a very true top-ranked team. And that is why we're going to start talking about our top 6, which are the truest contenders of the league at this moment. So let's go ahead and go into number 6. That's going to be Ghost. Now, they did lose this week to TK Benchers, but TK Benchers has consistently been in the top 5 for me, along with Ghost. So I don't think the loss is horrible, but I do think how dominating the game 2 was, that is why they fall down for me, on top of not being able to take a single game off TK Benchers. So they're going to fall to the 6th spot after being 2, and I think that's one of the biggest drops we've had this week. Go ahead and show me number 5. That's going to be TK Gamers, another team falling out of favor. They finally fell from that 1 spot after 2 weeks of domination, and that is due to the fact that they lost to a very good coin flip team. Again, it was a 2-0. And it makes you kind of wonder, can TK Gamers and Ghost truly compete with what's looking like to be the contenders of the league here? Or are they just slight contenders who have a chance if maybe the best teams get knocked out early? Go ahead and show me the next team, CLT. That's going to be Instinct CK moving up 2 spots here. And look at that. Into the top 4. Very impressive. I've been super impressed with this team, continuing to get these wins. They did drop in the first week here to Cal Poly Division 2, and that's almost why I wanted to move Cal Poly a little further up, but I decided, from what I've seen from the 2 teams, Instinct just has still looked better, and they have beat TK Benchers, which still for me is super impressive, seeing that that's 3 of the former champions of last split. So I'm going to put Instinct CK here at the 4th spot. Go ahead and show me number 3 now as we break the top 3. That's me, Backdoor Bandits. They stay at 0 movements. And the reason why that is, and they haven't gone up or down, it's a simple fact that 1, they're 3-0, so I don't think they should go down. And 2, I do think the next 2 teams are just slightly better based on the performances in their series and the wins they have under their belt. But Backdoor Bandits still has some stuff to prove to me and show me that maybe they are truly possibly the number 1 team or number 2 team in this league. Until then, go ahead and show me the top 2 teams real quick, CLT. Alright, so that's going to be Coin Flip and TK Benchers, both moving up 3 spots. We just talked about how both of these teams got big signature wins, knocking out the 1 and 2 ranked teams from last week, being TK Gamers and Ghost. I am extremely impressed with both performances out of these teams, both getting 2-0s over teams that we do believe to be true contenders. But at this moment, due to the fact that Coin Flip is 3-0 and TK Benchers is 2-1, I have to give the slight edge to Coin Flip and how dominating Coin Flip has been in what is a truly strong Group A. But that is going to be my power rankings this week. You don't have to agree with them. Like I always say, go ahead and drop in the comments how you feel. Let me know. Send me your list maybe. Let's have some fun with this. But that's going to be my list. With that being said, Drop Ward and our friend CLT, do you have any disagreements here on this list this week?
No, I feel like this is pretty good. I mean, you still got some high quality matchups coming up here, especially in the Group B, Group C area, where some of these top teams still gotta yet to play each other. So I think it'll all sort itself out.
Yes, yes, I agree. How about you, Drop Ward?
Hey, first of all, thanks for having me. This is pretty fun to watch. My only thing that I've got is probably that number two and number three spot. I know, people are gonna probably have some comments on it. Um, but to go to your point, um, the three wins that Backdoor Bandits have were what? Ice Wall, Load the Cannons, and who was the third? To
Sad,
remind me, Sad Jellyfish.
sad Jeffries, yes.
Right. So although they're 3-0, I can see your point that the in terms of the impressiveness of the wins haven't been great. Um, because Icewall is a little bit lower on the list, as we can see. Well, the bottom of the list,
18. Yep.
18. Sad Jelly has not looked in form compared to previous splits. Although I do have faith that they will turn it around. They're not really on the upswing right now, so there's that. Load the Cannons is a great team. I think they have potential of knocking on the door of the top 4 to 6 spots. But at the moment, they're with Small Brains, No Mechanics in that seventh, eighth spot. So I can see your point. They haven't beat a top 6 team yet. Um, whereas TK Ventures has. So I can see your point. I do still believe that they should be the number two spot for not dropping a game yet.
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment. But yeah, like you said, I mean, if you look at TK Ventures, they've beaten. Let's see, I gotta remember this real quick. They have beat Ghost, as we just talked about, and I gotta double check their first win of this of the split.
Dyslexic.
Dyslexic. So they've beaten a team lower and they've beaten a team higher, but that loss is coming to a team that is sitting there at number 4 right now. Right, it's sitting high up in the power ranking, so that
Yeah.
loss looks a lot better um, than it would if it was to a team like I don't know. Maybe kind of look at these teams. Like maybe even Cal Poly right now. Not that Cal Poly looks like a bad team, more that they're not as high ranked currently. But I do expect that could change here soon because I think Group C is going to be a fun group to watch out for when it comes to the competitiveness of it. There's what 4 teams I believe, as we talked about on the stream the other day, that are sitting at 2-1, right? CLT.
Yes, correct. Ventures, Ghost, Cal Poly, and Instinct are all at 2-1.
Yeah. So certainly there's a chance for some movement there, but yeah, thanks for breaking that down and definitely bringing that up because I expect people to still disagree with it. I mean, I think some might still disagree with Instinct CK being lower than Benchers based on CK beating Benchers, right? But I think this is part of what's fun about power rankings and lists. It's really not about what's truly right. It's about an opinion. It's just my opinion. And again, if you disagree, that's fine. Let's keep it fair. Let's keep it respectful, right? And that is it. So that's my power rankings for week 3 of the 2024 Winter Sweat League. Uh, if that's all we have, boys, I will go ahead and move on to the next segment here. And that's going to be CLT's Island of Misfit Stats, where again, our friend Dropboard will have a special new stat to talk about that he came up with himself. So I'll let one of you guys lead that off then.
Yeah, CLTO. How about you lead it off?
Yeah, no, yeah, appreciate Drop Ward coming in. I know he's helped quite a bit on compiling these stats and doing some analytics behind it. And he came up with a lot of the appearance and the formulas too. So big shout out to him. And I know there's a few other guys that have helped work on it. But yeah, this has been a really fun project to be involved in. So thanks for that. So I believe these stats will be public soon, if not right after this video comes out. But as you can see, we've kept track of all the stats for every single game, even including which side's won more. And got at least win losses, bans, pick rate, present rates, and we even came up with and this was more of Dropboard's project, but came up with a power pick rating. So before I go into some of the champions and the notables, Dropboard, do you want to explain power picks and how this kind of works?
Sure, yeah, I can do that. So, before we get started at that, did we explain presence and presence rate in the previous episodes at all?
Yes.
I believe we went over it, but if you want to go over it more and just a touch more details, that'd be great to
Sure.
revisit that.
Yeah. So presence and presence rate. Presence is basically how many times a champion has been picked or banned, which kind of alludes to what the teams or the league's general perception of that champion is, which is basically like our mini meta for the Sweat League. So that's kind of what that's representing. Um, Presence rate is basically taking that presence number and dividing it by the total games played, which is in M1, in the M1 slot, column, cell, whatever thingy. So basically, that's just showing how much. If a champion has a higher presence rate, that just shows how much a team is valuing that pick, or sorry, the league in itself as a whole is valuing that pick. Um, Now, if that is kind of explained pretty well, let's move on into the power pick section. So this was a pretty interesting stat of mine. I kind of wanted to look at what champions are really strong. So the way I determined that is by using presence rate, which is determining how strong the league and teams are seeing a champion, and I am comparing that to the win rate, which is the results. So I wanted to see um, if a champion is good, is doing well compared to what the perception of the champion's strength is. Um, with that being said, the power picks, what I did was I took presence rate and uh, win rate, multiplied them together. And then I took B2, which is wins, and I took total wins of a champion, and then I divided it by the total amount of games played in the whole split. Um, the reason I did that, the reason why I took total games and divided it by the the reason why I took the total wins of a champion and divided it by total games of the split is because we wanted to give more weight to win rate than presence rate. Um, we think, me and a couple other analysts believe that win rate matters more than pick ban rate. Um, and that's just because of what we've seen in performances. Generally, champions that win more should be valued more. Uh, that's kind of our reasoning behind it. But yeah, so taking the total wins. So for example, Ambessa has 4 wins so far. She should be punished compared to a champion like Skarner who has 9 wins. So even though she caught Skarner has caught up to her in presence. Let's use Victor. Victor's a better example. So Victor has 13 wins, but has a less presence rate than Mbessa. So we want those 13 wins to be more um, heavily weighted than that presence rate. That's why we take total wins and we divide that by total games played, and that's how we get a more weighted average towards win rate. Um, Sorry, I kind of jumbled along. It's kind of like a complicated stat, but I thought that was probably the best way to explain it. Feel free to let me know in the comments if my explanation needs to be a little more simplified, a little more easy to follow. Came up with this a couple days ago, so I'm trying to get better at explaining it to people uh, as I show them.
Yeah, I think you did a good job, Dropboard, by all means. for me. Like, and I know CLT will agree. Like, at the end of the day, we just want to find an interesting way to explain it, like you said, and break it down. And that's kind of what you did. You did that, and now people can see, like, okay, you know, Victor here has come to be the highest power pick, and I think the league agrees with it based on the amount of bans, and it's winning also. So hence, it's good, right? So it's a really good breakdown of it. I don't think it's bad at all, but that's just me interjecting on that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what it's supposed to show is that in order for a champion to be quote unquote truly strong or truly powerful, is one, they have to have um, a high presence rate, so um, they have to be in games, and they also have to have a high win rate. We can't just have a champion with 3 wins, 0 losses, but no presence rate. They're going to be lower on the list because their presence rate is going to punish them. So we don't want any kind of cheese picks coming in right higher on the power picks. We don't want any type of one-offs like that happening. So that's why the presence rate is there to keep the win rates modest.
Yeah. I,
Um,
I, I
yeah.
highlighted Pike there since you brought up a 3-0 champion. I found a 3-0 champion here. So Pike sitting at a 4.4 on your power pick scale. So should we what's the scale based out of, by the way, so the viewers know? Like, what's the highest you could reach?
So the highest you should reach is 100. As we can see, Victor's at the top spot with 69.7. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where it's at. Even though Victor is like a super strong champion, 13-4, crazy good win rate, crazy good amount of played averages, um, compared to the total games played at the split, uh, it's still not 100%, right? So
Yeah.
it's not 100% win rate. It's not even 80% presence rate. So it's not going to warrant like a 80 to 90 out of 100. It's kind of good at where it's at, which is around 70% or 70 points on the power ranking.
Yeah. Cool. That's a great breakdown. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about that, or shall you two kind of just start bouncing around your stats then?
Oh, we can always come back to it, but why don't we just bounce around and I'll let I've done enough talking for at least at this moment. I just want CLT to take the wheel from here.
All right, CLT.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the explanation drop board. It's definitely a stat that is really really good analytically, and I think weighing the wins a little bit more represents the power picks a lot better. So I do appreciate that. But kind of going around on our stats a little bit, I like to do this by role, and as we kind of can see here within this top five, regarding
You want to do win
the
rate or yeah? I'm sorry, I kind of changed it. What do you want to do?
yeah, we'll do power picks since that's kind of the topic that we're going
Okay,
off
let's
of
let's start with it
a
then. Yeah,
little
sure.
bit. So
Okay, yeah.
we see Casante is still like having a pretty good uh, presence up in the top lane. I mean, 6 wins, 2 losses. So he's not like the general be all champion, but it seems like when you are planning to run something super tanky, he's the one that stands out quite a bit. I mean, still a 75% win rate, 26 on the power rankings is just right there in fifth at the power rankings, and we've seen some Casante being paid quite a bit this week. The one that's kind of stands out is After Pack went completely nuts on that champion. So top laners who are really skilled and play this champion really well, there's still just a boatload of power there. So, but yeah, Casante definitely the main tank that stands out. And Bessa's still showing a lot of love, though I think her play rate kind of fell down this week quite a bit. Teams didn't seem to find the success on her when she was picked, but she was still banned quite a bit against certain top laners. So Camille overtook her as a second spot, but Camille's also 5-0, so that the wins will definitely skew that power ranking a little bit there. But seems like the Camille players, when they get it in their hands, they're popping off quite a bit. Brandino comes to mind. I know we banned it twice against him, and he's a very avid Camille player there in Group A. So, drop ward. What do you think kind of stands out here in this top lane since we're talking about this?
Yeah. Do you want me to just kind of hit like the top lane champions
Yeah,
for right now?
yeah. We can just stick at the top lane for here for a second.
Yeah. So when I first created this stat power picks a week ago, Camille was number one. Um, she was above Skarner. Skarner was number two, I believe, or Mbessa was number two, one of the two, and then Victor was hanging around fifth spot. But Camille with the strong 5-0 win rate, 100% win rate, win loss record, was at the top at the time. But it seems like not many people are picked or banned her as much in comparison to the other top champions. So that's why she's dropped a lot, but she still needs respect. That's why she's in the top 10. People, again, like you said, when certain players get their hands on this champion, it seems like uh, their their threat in the top lane just becomes too much for teams to handle. Um, I've seen it even when the Camille is not completely ahead, she still finds ways to get those important catches. Soaks up enough damage. She's just a very strong champion in uh, the league's hands, especially with the talented top laners that we have in our league.
Yeah, agreed. And I think also the thing that's helping Camille succeed is some of the counters, specifically coming out of like the jungle, the CC tanks that can help lock her down. Poppy comes to mind. Seem to have fallen out of like general favor. They're coming out for counter picks, but you just don't see as much Poppy as we did last compared to last split.
Yeah, especially a friend of mine who's very smart at the game definitely says that there's definitely some power picks that have counters. It's just that um, it seems like the general players in the leagues aren't able to play those counter picks correctly or well enough. So that's why some of these power picks are going unchecked.
And then I know you helped us put some of these stats in. The big thing I noticed this week was Ornn. I think he
Yes.
won 4 or 5 games this week.
Yeah, he's skyrocketing up the power pick ladder. And that's another really cool part about this stat is you can start to the more that teams look at these stats now that they're public, they can start to see which champions are rising up the ladder, which champions should be warranted more for picks and focus on. Their presence rate should be going up higher as they start to get wins, for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into the jungle a little bit. I know we've already said his name quite a bit, but I mean Skarner has by far the biggest sample size I think of any champion on this list. It's
Yes.
absolutely insane. 27 bans, 43 on the presence, 56% win rate. Like, is there anything this champion can't do?
Yeah, I should
Matt,
note there was a top. I want to just interject real quick. There was a top pick as well that won for Skarner, so he's kind of jack of all trades right now.
Yeah, that was in the Yone too.
yeah. Really quick, I want to touch back at the top picks. I forgot to give a special shout out to Kisante. Um, this week 3, I've seen some pretty nutty plays on some pretty nutty players um, with this pick, and I think in the right hands, this champion is just as strong as some of these other top tier picks, which is why he skyrocketed as well to the top. What is he top 6 on the? I don't know, let's see. Yeah, he's top 6. I mean, He's top 6 for a reason. Very versatile champion, strong, can duel almost anyone early, but can also be that tank that soaks up damage for like what seems like an eternity in a team fight as well.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, back to Skarner. Sorry.
Yeah, Skarner. I don't. There's nothing this champion can't do. It feels like if you try to fight him early, he still wins duels. If you try to fight him late, he's so tanky it's impossible to kill him. And it's just, I don't. Is there? Maybe Harewick can chime in. Outside of like Wukong, which some people are picking as more of a disruption counter, is there anything that really takes this champion down?
Yeah, I mean, it has picks. For example, Volibear kind of just completely destroys it. But the issue is, like, Volley's not good right now, in my opinion. I don't think anyone should really be picking it. So Skarner's going to kind of run rampant to a degree. So that's an example. The reason why Wukong's pretty good is because of his natural shred. And yes, of course, the disruption. I think Poppy is decent into it too. The problem with Poppy is that, again, I think she's not the best jungler right now, and I think if you look at the stats on the champion, you'd see that. I don't think it's as strong as it used to be. She's more of a really good counter pick, but she's not a true counter to Skarner. It's just, she can kind of play around in team fights against the pick, right? Because if you're using the judgment properly, I forgot what it's called, judgment something, judgment day or something like that. Whatever her alt is exactly called, Poppies. If you use that properly, you can kind of almost disengage a fight when Skarner goes in. Whether you're knocking Skarner out of the fight himself or you're knocking other members of the team out. So that way, when the Skarner drops his impale on a member, they're fine. So there's stuff like that. It's really weird, but he has that Malphite thing going on where, like, if you see him, you got to stand like 2 screens away. You know, like he always has a chance to catch you. So yeah, pretty good champion right now for sure.
Yeah. And we'll be curious to see if anybody tries him out top lane again after he got that win.
We shall see.
So, but and actually on the note about the Skarner top, it wouldn't hurt to bring up that Mbessa. I think's been played 2 or 3 times in the jungle, specifically by Insane Bananas jungler.
Flame Dog, yes.
Yeah, Flame Dog, and I think he's gotten a couple wins on it as well.
Yeah,
So
I believe he's 1-1 if I remember correctly.
okay, yeah, but I mean, I'm I'm curious. I've seen some Mbessa jungles do well in like solo queue, but be curious to see if anybody has that in the back pocket or uses it as a flex pick going into the playoffs. So one thing I've noticed this split way less than last split is just AP junglers are non-existent right now. We've not seen any Brand, any Morgana, any. We've seen what, like 1 or 2 Evelynn games,
I think one
but
Evelyn game. We did see a Zyra game this week for the first time. But yeah, we definitely haven't. I mean, you could say Amumu's AP though. I mean, he's up there, and people are building him like a lot of times like an AP champion. So he's getting that. What's that darn item called? I can't think of it right now.
Leanderis.
Yeah, yeah, he builds that a lot. So, I mean, there is some AP junglers in there. It just they're not as present, and there could be a lot of reasons behind that. I mean, AP bots aren't being picked a lot in our league where they're still pretty strong. So when you're not picking AP bots, um, then that gives you the opening to pick AP junglers, but it's almost like I feel like teams just rather have the AP stable in the mid. So it's really interesting why it's not happening. I'm not really sure, but it is what it is. I'm cool with it. I don't think AP junglers are fun to watch most of the time. A lot of them are pretty boring, except for maybe like Lilia, 5-man sleep, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I don't think we've seen Lilia this whole split. Oh yeah, we have. We have. She's 1 win.
Yeah.
So interesting there. But yeah, not as much diversity. I feel like in the jungle. I mean, occasionally I think we've got a couple of Mundo jungles show up, which is kind of the spicier
Yeah.
pick. But for the most part, it's been just kind of Skarner, Wukong, some Rek'Sai out there, but
Yeah, and if you're
not.
talking about power picks, I mean, basically you're looking at the Amumu, the Skarner, and the Wukong
Yeah,
like being your top three. out of the jungle, and then after that, like everybody kind of falls off a bit. I know people have been favoring Vi a lot, and I can find her for everybody. She's pretty low down there. I mean, she's sitting at a 4.1 on the power pick scale and a 33.3% win rate after being picked 9 times. Like this champion, I've said it so many times. Like please just like stop picking this champion. It's literally only good for counter situations. But yeah, it's been interesting. I think jungle has just seen a lot of the same stuff, and it has to do with just like you said, Skarner being OP, and then Amumu just being strong in general around team play. So, and then Wukong being that counter pick to Skarner.
I want to add something. So another reason why I created this power picks stat is because I want teams to kind of look at champions that are low on this list and kind of think to themselves, should they really be low on that list? I want to give an example. Special shout out to Nocturne right here. He's 4-1 right now, with the win loss. Um, 5 bans. I think this champion should be kind of put into more consideration, especially because in a team-oriented environment where a lot of teams are going to be more calculated and measured compared to like Flex or a solo queue environment. Nocturne, with his ability to shut the lights out, really can disorientate um, teams, especially when they rely heavily on communication in crucial moments. So the fact that Nocturne has a presence of 8 out of 61 games, I kind of think that teams should really be taking a more consideration into this champion, and which is why that's part of the reason why I made this power pick stat is that for people to look down the list, even though a lot of people might look at the top 10 only and not care about the rest of the list, the bottom of the barrel. I want people to really consider looking down and trying to look for some um, golden nuggets or diamonds in the rough, for example.
I like that. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
a lot of on the lower, a lot of champions that are lower on the list. It just seems like teams are passing on them too
yeah.
quickly.
So for clarification, just so everybody knows, there has been a total of 140 champions of like the 160 whatever it is. I don't know the exact number. There's been 140 champions either picked or banned throughout the split. I don't have the stat on the amount of the ones that have been picked once or been banned just once. I mean, we could figure that out for you guys right now if we really want. But the point I bring that up is to say this. Nocturne sitting at a 6.2 on the power pick scale isn't even middle of the pack, by the way. He's actually pretty high on the power pick scale right now. I couldn't give you the exact number. I'd have to count through, but he's up there. Number two, I think the reason why, and drop word to your point about maybe this champion should be picked more. I think Nocturne is again one of those champions where he kind of falls in line with Vi, where it's like you don't really want to pick Nocturne in every situation. And whereas, like, I think certain champions, like the Skarners, the Amumus, even the Wukongs, the Sejuani's even, who has been losing a bit, but I think is still strong, they're just more versatile in a lot of comps. And I think Nocturne needs specific comps to thrive. Um, J4 is up there right now, too, right? He's been picked a decent amount compared to Nocturne. Even though he's lost some, the J4 makes so much sense. He has great comps where he works. So I think that's probably why you're not seeing Nocturne picked as much. And maybe now that you mentioned this champion, he's gonna be picked all next week. But I do want to point that out, and I do think if people just start picking him a bunch as a jungle main, I think he'll start losing more because not just because the sample size it'll grow. It's more because I think he's just better in specific comp situations.
Yeah, I think definitely that's kind of what I want to. I want teams to start looking at champions and seeing that maybe catch the trend early. That's what I want. If they see, okay, a champion's winning a lot, 80% win rate in 5 games. Let's see if that's real or if that's because it's niche, right?
Mhm.
So we won't know that until people try them out more. And you mentioned that it's high on the list, but I would say that's because the list is top heavy. A lot of champions are not getting looked at. A lot of champions are not seeing the time of day. And that's because we are looking at we're using only a small amount of pools and creating that meta out of it. I would like to see some more champion diversity in that meta, especially with champs that have high presence rate but don't have a lot to show for it in terms of win rate. And they're getting picked or banned a lot, but they're also losing a lot. So that's why I want teams to kind of reconsider other picks, especially if the scenario calls for it.
Yep. And I understand your point for sure. So
Yep, I would agree with that, and I think that discussion can definitely be applied towards jungle, where I would argue there's the least diversity
Mhm.
in the league so far. But I think we're going to transition this over to mid lane a little bit. Surprise to absolutely nobody. Victor, #1 top dog, power pick, 13-4. Like, there's just nothing that stops this champion. In my opinion, and the things that do stop this champion are just solo queue picks. There's not really very many picks in competitive that do what Victor does. Hui kind of comes close to it, but I feel like Victor could almost be just a slightly short range version of Hui. So, and then yeah, speaking of Hui, we got highlighted here is he's our next mid lane. Though I think this Hui is more team specific. I feel like he doesn't pop up in as many series as I would expect. It feels like there's a subset of teams that have mid laners that just play Hui and play him well enough that he's either that #2, #3 mid after pick ban, or teams are just banning it outright because they don't want to see the diversity that champion brings to team comps in there. So, what do you guys think about this? Specifically Hui, but I mean, you got Victor, Hui. It's your top two.
Airwick, you want to go first?
I mean, sure. I mean, yeah. I actually think Victor's good in Hawaii. What I've seen as far as the matchup. With that said, I mean, Hawaii is a jack of all trades, master of none, as we talked about. So he kind of fits into a lot of comps, and that's where we talked about before, where certain champions, if they fit in a lot of situations, you could just send it on it. And if the champion's also strong, and I think Hawaii fits all those parameters. Victor is got his specific thing. He wants to scale. And right now, a lot of our league, a lot of the matches, I mean, just the meta in general, I think across the game has been a more longer uh, time played in these series. So you're seeing scaling being where it's at. So Victor to me makes tons of sense right now why he's being picked, but the changes also make him pretty busted. Other than that, I mean, you're looking at, I think like Ari and Aurora are up there um, as picks. Ari's not too bad to Victor if she can catch him out early, and then Aurora's just a good team pick. So I know she's been picked top a couple times, but for the most part, it's been mid lane. So I'm not really surprised at seeing what's in the uh, top part of the echelon of mid lane. Um, but yeah, I don't really know what the true Victor counters are, so I don't play mid. But I know in the past something like there's a Zed player, by the way. Zed would love a Victor. Like he gets shoved in early, but once he hits 6, he just kills Victor on repeat. So I am generally curious why maybe there isn't some assassins being picked in these situations, and it could just be the fact that well, if we don't scale, we lose. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, it seems like Victor's definitely Depot. He's definitely top dog. When teams see that champion get picked, everyone kind of gets a little nervous. Um, when they're versing him, obviously. Uh, I think Hui is definitely not. He offers a lot, and I agree with your sentiment. He's definitely the jack of all trades. He's a very balanced mid laner that does damage right now, pretty good damage. Um, and yeah, it's just shaping up towards the mid lane being about mages. Um, Ari is a pretty strong champion. Very good at snowballing. Uh, Pretty neutral, pretty safe. Um, and her items make her pretty strong, like a very big threat with 2 items. Aurora, like you said, is a flex pick. Is a very good flex pick, by the way. Her ults are very punishing in the early to mid game team fights for sure. So it makes sense. It looks like the mid lane meta, at least for our Sweat League, is Victor, Hui, yeah, Ari Aurora for the most part. Seems that way.
I'll chime in on this. I think there's a couple of other like fringier picks that come out by certain teams, certain players that have proficiency on them, like Syndra, for example. I think there's some teams that see Syndra as a potential like counter to Victor. Not necessarily in lane, you go about even with them, but she definitely has the damage to blow Victor up. She's just not as good of a generalized pick and into that. And I think she can be easily countered by like the jungle champion pool. You got stuff like Wukong and Skarner that can just get in her face and push her back. But the one I'm really interested in to see how it's going to grow is Corki. I know some of Corki's play rate has been bought, but there are still a few like legacy mid laners that have no issues picking the Corki mid, and he still does a just truckload of damage early and scales really well. So that's probably the pick I would want to highlight and just see if teams kind of look at this and see that Corki's up there, and if your mid laner is a mage specialist, then they might try to pick up Corki just to give him a little AD flexibility in the draft. So, what do you guys think about Corki?
I think he gives us a perfect transition to talk about AD carry, because I think he's been picked majority bot. I think it's been like maybe 2 or 3 times in the mid lane.
I thought it was roughly like
So
50-50, but okay.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I've seen him a lot bot lane. Like in some series where I've seen him twice, in the bot lane in one series back to back. So he seems to be a just a strong pick in general, and he scales really well. So it makes sense whether you're picking a mid or bot, why he would do super well in this current meta.
It actually did
Yeah,
what Scorch did against us, and where it was Corki and Syndra actually went bot, and it was Corki mid.
Yeah, I mean that's
nice
one of
little
the
flex.
that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the only times I recall Corki being picked mid. To be honest with you, like I've seen a lot of it being mostly AD. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and real quick before we transition to 80 carries, yeah, I think Corki mid is actually a pretty viable option, especially in this scale. It seems like the meta is favoring scaling champions more. Um, well, Victor is a big reason for that, but I could definitely see a world where teams might consider Corki mid, especially because they can use that as a flex and draft right. Flexing is always a plus when it comes to
yeah,
champions.
I will say I thought he was one of those picks in the past that actually was fine into Victor, where he would just sit and farm like the Victor would, so they basically couldn't kill each other. I could be wrong, but I could have sworn that was why Corki mid used to get picked back in the day. Like when he was the old Corki or the new old Corki, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
package Corki. So
Yeah. Corki can stand his ground into Victor a little bit, but the thing is, like, it's if your champion's got to be meta mid, can it stand up to Victor right now and lane into it? And it's like Corki, Syndra, Ari, Hui, they all can at least match farm for farm with Victor. In Hui's case, he can kind of push him back slash outpoke him a little bit.
yeah,
But mid lane, it's just like if you just got to take Victor off the table, and that opens up the champ pools to a bunch of different things like Azir and Swain, for example.
yep.
Yeah. I'm down to move into the 80 carries if you want, if you guys are ready.
Yep.
Yeah, so you got Ash highlighted there. You want to start that one off?
Oh, me? Not no. I just was highlighting the one that was was the top
Oh,
there.
yeah. Well, AD carry, I mean, I actually feel like AD carry's kind of been pretty diverse throughout the league. I know we've seen some kind of weird, wacky picks there, but Ash is still looks like the queen of the bot lane. It's just a very safe, easy to execute pick. Uh, can kite around. We've seen talented AD carries like Geico absolutely use the slow and kite around a lot of things. And so she has the third highest power pick rating and the highest of all the bot laners at 10 and 3.
Yeah.
So 76% win rate's pretty up there.
76% win rate is no joke, especially when it's a champion that's played that much games. 10 games is always going to be something to consider, no matter what other circumstances is around that champion. Um, Ash very strong in this type of game format where information might be more important than um, if you were playing flex or if you were playing solo queue uh, in a coordinated environment like this, especially because the champion is pretty strong early too. Like her Q when it's charged up is no joke. You cannot fight her early when she has her Q on. So
Yeah, and actually, I think it was either this week or last week she overtook Jinx for kind of the queen of the bot lane, as Jinx has kind of leveled off now, 8-8.
hmm
Still a respectable 26 on the power rankings. Um, but still doesn't come close to the success people find on Ashe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ash is pretty good into Jinx, by the way. I think that's a lot of what it has to do with. Plus the utility of it, where you shoot the Ash arrow at the Jinx's face, and there you go, Jinx now dead. Utility rules.
Ashe Arrow, even from bot lane to like a grub fight's not too hard to hit.
which you could kind of make a pretty good assessment, especially as Ash has boosted in wins this week and Jinx has boosted in losses this week. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably what happened there.
yeah, they've been picking each other a decent amount. I've casted a decent amount of those games, so.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then the two kind of sub S picks, or you can even talk about them as like A picks, is we got Jhin and Sivir. I know I know Herwick's been singing the praises of Sivir, but it seems like the more I see her play, just the most she's like the most effective crit based AD carry. I would even say argue like safer and better than Jinx to some degree.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I saw her last week. She was 5-1 in terms of win loss. She's kind of racked up some of the losses this week for sure. Sorry, Jake. I mean, Harrows, if you want to go ahead and chime in.
yeah, that's okay. I mean, people can know my name, no big deal. But yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think she's still having a lot of success, and some of those losses I feel like are not really on the champion. I think some of it's on the play itself because she is being picked in situations where she is overall just strong. I don't think people like no one's misidentifying. Okay, this is a silver moment. So I think the pick is very strong, and I do agree she's one of the best crit 80 carries right now. As far as Jin, I'm still surprised he's up there in win rate, but I haven't been overly impressed by the champion. I'm not gonna knock it completely because it's winning, but yeah, I don't really trust the Jin pick at the moment, and wouldn't be surprised if players see this and go, "Hey, Jin's good, let's pick it," and then starts getting dumpstered. So, but it is utility, and that's why people pick Jin, right? And that's the same reason why they pick Sivir, and the same reason why they pick Ash. And guess what? In competitive play, as much as AD carries probably don't want to do this, you end up getting relegated to picking utility picks.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. I don't think the state of a lot of the crit based scaling AD carries are the greatest. Even though Jinx and Sivir are pretty high, it seems like the utility still just has such a more even curve throughout the game that you just find yourself being useful.
Mm.
So, but do want to point out that there are some teams out there playing some weird wacky stuff in the bot lane. I know Point Flip's bot lane has played Lux a few times, and I think there was another team that tried Lux as well.
Yeah. No, AP bots are still popping up here and there. They haven't gone like completely out of the window when it comes to favor. But you are seeing basically all the standard 80 carries winning more for sure. But when the AP bots are picked, they still do win. I just you gotta be careful with those picks because there's a lot based around what what does your mid laner want to do, and if your mid laner is not feeling comfortable playing something that might be an AD heavy champion, like it kind of pushes that away. So it's very interesting. But I know Ziggs was the one that was really popular for a long time, and he's only been picked what 3 times. So and I think those are all AP bot games too.
There was one Ziggs mid game.
Okay, so one Ziggs mid game. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that was me.
Oh, that was this fruitcake. Got it.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, drop board. You got anything else to note on the 80 carries or?
I think that's about it. I think Corky is Corky's still a strong champion. Definitely. That's why I think Corky mid should be considered more viable because of how strong he is as a AD. So naturally, he becomes more of a threat. P- Teams are probably going to think he's going bot, but instead they get surprised with a mid flex, and you might see some bot picks get countered pretty hard because of that. So I can see why Corky might be valued more as a flex moving forward.
Oh, there is one that I wanted to point out. Not only did we end up getting a win on it, but it seemed like it was the theme of this week was Varus. I think all 4 of his wins were this week.
Interesting.
Correct me if I'm wrong. At least I can think of 3 of them. And I think there were a couple different builds as well. So maybe the viability of Varus can be something looked at. As you noted, maybe he's one of these diamonds in the rough that teams can just pull out and see. I remember Geico, he got a win earlier this split on AP Varus coming out of the bot lane. And then I know we won with lethality poke Varus, so be
That was
curious.
sorry, go ahead.
No, just be curious to see like what builds are still working and then what AD carries like which builds.
That was gonna be my question: is what build, especially because Varys historically can build it all basically.
Hmm.
But I have heard negative reviews on hit Varys the past couple of weeks, so I'm pretty sure this is if we do see Varys AP bot lane option, it's a possibility, especially with a lot of these tankier picks coming in. AP Varys does fucking destroy tanks,
Hmm.
so that would be cool to see. Lethality Varys, I'm always a fan of. I think that's a cool. Even though I'm historically more of a on hit DPS player, I do like seeing me a nice Lethality Varys build.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into supports here. You know, I honestly think supports have had probably the most amount of diversity this split than I can remember. I don't know about you guys, but we've seen stuff like Amumu go bot. GeoProw has his infamous Elise support. Seen Tarek show up this week. Just a bunch of different supports, but Thresh is kind of the top one that we see here at 5-3. 11.3 on the power pick rating. If we're excluding Amumu, because I think a majority of his are jungle. But you see stuff like Lulu, Milio, Nautilus. Nami got quite a bit of play this week. Brom's always a solid counter pick. Seraphine has primarily been support the split, I believe.
I think you're right on that.
Yeah, I know Insane Banana, I think their support went mid in kind of a wacky comp and played the Seraphine mid, but I think the majority of the Seraphine's play has been bot lane, or not bot lane, but support role and
Mm.
Rakan. So I think the diversity of the supports, if you look deep enough in the numbers, because of how diverse the support pool is, there's not any one that is like running away with the power rankings or
Yeah.
has like this overwhelming amount of stats.
Hmm.
Well, I
But
think
you see a lot of them up in this top half of the numbers.
yeah, I think what we can do. I'd like to switch to the presence right here for a second, and just kind of find who's got the highest presence in support roles. I think that's a better look than trying to see the power pick, because I feel like power pick for supports doesn't always look as favorable, and you're kind of already seeing that, right? So,
Yeah.
why don't we
It's
look
a
at
good
that?
point.
Who's kind of showing up the most in the league on the support role?
For
Besides a Mumu being picked some here and there.
so since you have this sorted by presence, it looks like we have Braum and Nautilus back to back up here in the 15-16 position.
Yeah, those are yeah.
Yep.
And then actually Seraphine's not too far behind it. We've even seen some, I think, one or two Maokai supports. Not to like skew too much into that conversation, but Yeah, you see supports getting, I think, represented a little bit better when you look at the presence rate. There's so much diversity down there
Yeah, and I
that
think picks like
it's hard to
Braum, why you seeing it picked a lot, is just kind of consider what is being played right now. You got to look at it like, well, okay, so you take something like the Sivir we talked about. Braum's pretty good in the Sivir. You talk about
Mhm.
Jin. Braum's good in the Jin. Like, these 80 carries. Ash, he's actually not bad in the Ash. He just, jumps in front of his 80 carry, puts up his wall. He might get stunned, but I mean, a tanky Braum getting stunned over an 80 carry, I mean, I'll take that all day.
Yeah.
Nautilus, I think it's just more for the engage onto these very low mobile ADCs. But I do think he's suffering a bit because in some of these comps, the pick does not find as much success because like you're going in every time, and that's the problem with Nautilus. So you're in, and you're either the fight's gonna work out or it's not, and so Nautilus can be one of those funny picks. So that's why you're seeing it kind of lose a bit. Um, but yeah, other than that, like we did talk about the Thresh a little bit already, and the Seraphine obviously, but the Thresh having a high win rate, 62% on 8 picks, pretty strong. And then yeah, Leona is up there too, and presence,
Yeah.
but she's just kind of, I don't know, she's still not having the success you'd want from this champion. I think based on how much is being valued.
Yeah,
Agreed.
it's weird that I think last split, Leona and some of the other engaged supports did well, but these team comps now are so safe, and you've got to walk through so much to get to the back line that Leona's even not enough engage just by herself. Feels like she prefers more of the follow up engage role or secondary.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think the reason why she's suffering the most is because she's not great late game. Like the thing is, she will get tanky. Her W is very strong. These things are not disputable. But when you consider like late game when you're playing a Leona that's probably not going to be full tank build, right? Probably going to have that locket, probably going to have maybe what are some other supporting items I can't even think of right now. Like come on guys, help me out here. Give me some
Um,
Knight's
It's like
Vow,
Locket,
Knight's Vow
Nice
for sure.
Val,
Yeah. So they're
Missile
building
Zeke's.
Mask,
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
So
Yeah.
they're building a lot of more squishier stuff usually as supports. So what ends up happening is this Leona's just really honestly squishy. You get to that point where Leona has the same thing. It's usually more or less go in, kind of like Nautilus, but she's fallen off, gets shredded, and the fight's over because you have better picks that just do a better job at defending these late game scalers, these Jinxes, these Sivers, these Victors, right? Even Ash scales decently well, by the way, into the late game. She's not like a Jinx, but she's gonna do decent, right? So all these champions, they're scaling really hard. That's what these comps are being built around. You got the Orns as well. Leona's just not finding the success because of that, and I think that's the biggest thing. She wants the game to end pre 30 minutes, like 90% of the time. So if your game is going past 30, which we've had a lot do, she's just gonna lose a lot of value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. You're good.
I was gonna ask a quick question. Has Elise been played in support or jungle more this split?
Support.
She's not been
I
played
actually,
jungle once, I don't think.
I was about to say that. I think Elise's representation is all Geo Prowl support Elise.
Oh, okay. That one series.
He played it. He subbed one game and played it, and then I think he's played it in 2 separate series himself.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Hmm.
yeah. It's got a lot of value in solo queue right now. I know that. Like, it's really strong there. I don't think it's necessarily bad in competitive play, but I think the big thing right now is nobody knows how to play against it in the bot lane. And I think once somebody discovers, like, we'll go back to that Zyra. Remember Zyra support guys, and then MF came out, right? Once someone figures out how to counter this Elise support, she's gonna just drop off the map. So for right now, GeoPro is gonna have a lot of fun because anytime he gets to pick it, it's probably a free win at the moment. But let the league cook. Let the league cook. If this team makes playoffs, like they seem like they're destined to do, somebody figures it out. They might say, "Screw it, let this guy have his Elise. We have something," and then it gets dumpstered on. So, uh, I I am waiting for that. I am certainly waiting for that to happen to that pick.
Yeah, I think the other evolution in regards to this split, especially in bot lanes, it just seems like the duo of the bot lanes all have like way more range built into them. So it's a little bit harder for these engaged style champions to like find the proper opening. You're seeing a lot more enchanters, ashes, djinns come out, stuff like that that can start their damage and start their team's fights from like a much greater distance. To where like the crit based AD carries outside of like Jinx Rocket form, they're a little shorter of the range and they don't have the tools to work around the engages. So
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that's something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, definitely out of all the positions, it looks like the support meta's maybe the most balanced in terms of pick rates. I see Lulu, Milio, and Nami. So, yeah, Lulu, Milio, and Nami and Rakan all have 5 and 2 um, scores,
Mm-hmm.
win-loss rates. So it seems like teams are definitely kind of favoring some champions over the other, or maybe they're just experimenting more compared to the rest of the roles.
Yeah.
I think that's like your kind of your Mount Rushmore of enchanters. They're just skewed in a little bit different ways. To where like if you want a little more damage out of your enchanter, you got Nami. If you want that kind of engage pick slash tankiness, you got Rakan, and then Milio, Lulu, or just pick your utility type of supports there. So I
Yeah.
think those four represent kind of the support meta really, really well.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean that's a really good breakdown of the stats, guys. If there's not anything else to kind of touch on here, I think we can probably look to end the episode here. So I'll let you guys have a little moment here if either of you want to say anything as particular that stuck out to you.
Um, no, I mean this has always been enjoyable, but I appreciate Drop Ward putting his time and effort into all of this and um coming out here talking about this. It's always nice to have these quality conversations, especially with the guy who's coming up with the formulas and the analytics behind it. And I'll be curious to see how teams use this and see if they maybe see a team that might make that last push to playoffs because they found that diamond in the rough or something
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
attribute it to this. That would be really cool to hear.
yeah, definitely. I really like. I do this because I enjoy it. I have friends who play in this league, so I definitely feel more invested than watching some random other sweat league. And analytics is something I've always been interested in. So I just want to give a special shout out to you guys and the fans, and I just want anyone who looks over this to kind of and would see a stat they would like to know about, please shoot it in the comments or shoot me a DM on Discord. I can figure out a way to make that stat possible for you guys if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, last thing I just like that you touched on CLT is I hope that people use this power pick metric to locate any diamonds in the rough, but also inversely to notice that some champions might be overhyped and maybe you'll see less presence rate on them over time. Um, Namely Mbessa. I don't want to see that champion in any games ever again. Fuck that champ. But yeah.
All right.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Fair enough. Well, before I head out, then I will say this just to note for fun here. Blue side is finally up 32 wins to 29. So this is the first week it's up. I wanted to point that out too before we hopped off. Other than that, though, I think we're pretty much good. It was a much longer episode than I think anybody would have anticipated. I mean, this is similar to Old Midwest Weekly. But yeah, let us know if you'd like the longer episode, or if we want to get it back to that 30 to 40 minute format. We can certainly work on doing that. We're perfecting this more and more as we go. And I think Dropboard might continuously be a member of this crew as far as the stats and power rankings episodes. So he'll obviously decide if he wants to continue to come on, but I know he's very interested in that. So yeah, let him know how he did as well. Um, Other than that, I am gonna go ahead and close this out. And again, as I've already said, and I'll say it again on Midwest Weekly, Merry Christmas to everybody. If you're the one that's watching this, and I don't end up getting a chance to talk to you on Midwest Weekly, you don't want to watch it. I don't know. Maybe you're not interested. But yeah, so thanks everybody for coming out as always. It's been a fun split so far, and looking forward to seeing how these teams shape out whether it's the power rankings or the champion picks and bands. So thank you all again. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you on Midwest Weekly.